welcome to not a Michael and Marnie Monday, because it's not Monday, but a Michael and Marnie, or is it Marnie and Michael? It doesn't matter.
It's definitely Marnie and Michael.
It's an M&M moment,
yeah.
And we are not filming this on Friday, but this airs on Friday, and I want to talk really briefly about this really quickly before we jump into the meat of this video, which is the Sephora Beauty Insider Appreciation event. If you didn't know about it, Sephora has revamped their rewards program, and in honor of that, starting today, August 24th, for VIB Rouge members, they are offering 20% off online and in store, and then starting next week, August 30th, that is open to everyone. Still 20% off for VIB Rouge, 15% off for VIB, and 10% off for BI. I will be doing a video on my haul, which as you're watching this, I'll probably be shopping. But I will be hauling today, actually. And then that video of what I hauled will be going up on August 30th. So in the meantime, I did a blog post. I'll link that there and up here on what I either recommend or is on my wish list. And then come back next week to see what I picked up. Okay. Let's talk about what we're really here to talk about.
Thank God, because I wouldn't be able to talk about any of that stuff.
Yeah, if you've missed the video where Michael attempted to talk about makeup, I will list that because that was my most favorite video where Michael did the voiceover for when I put on makeup. That was my favorite video I've ever done, by the way. Yes.
Did a lot of people watch it?
Not as many as I had hoped.
Okay,
but
all right.
I think
you're in charge. You kind of direct this here.
I will try. Okay, so I don't know what we're going to call this, but basically this video, I'll tell you what it is not. It is not whether you should lease or buy a car. I have no opinion on that. We have done and still do both. What this video is, and why Michael is here, because he can speak expertly on this, is how to price out a vehicle if you want to buy or lease before you even enter the dealership. So you don't have to get into this whole haggling thing. So you know what a fair price is to offer, what a fair lease price, monthly price is. Yeah. So you can walk confidently into a dealership knowing what a fair price is. Is that fair? Can you say that better, please?
No, I mean, I think the car buying process, the purchasing or leasing process is overwhelming to a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I guess we probably have a dubious honor of we've owned a lot of cars, unfortunately, over the years. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but we've gone through the process a lot.
And we're still going through it.
And over the years, I think I've probably spent a little more time maybe than you did to try to understand where the dealerships are coming from. And, you know, to do it correctly and maybe to reduce the overwhelmingness, just the anxiety associated with what a lot of people kind of suffer through with the car process. Hopefully, you know, I'll just share with y'all some of the things that I've done to do my homework so we can kind of short circuit the process.
So I'm going to ask the questions because I still don't fully understand this.
Yeah.
But I kind of do, but I can't explain it well. That's why you're here.
I'll try the best
so I'm going to be the interviewer, and Michael's going to lead us through it.
Okay.
So I had a bunch of questions about why I'm a good candidate for leasing a car. Do we want to talk about that?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you're probably a good example now. Maybe not when we first got married, but now things have changed. And it makes sense for you, so maybe you should explain why you like it. Okay, I'll take this part, because this part I can explain. So why, and I'm not, again, telling why one or the other, but I did want to kind of address why I personally, we personally lease my vehicle and not the other 3 vehicles. Like I said, we own too many vehicles. So, there's 4 drivers in the family. So when we decided, I think maybe like 13 some odd years ago to lease instead of buy my car. Right. One of the big reasons was I wanted to be able to get a new car every 2 to 3 years so that I got the newest safety features because I had little kids in the car. I mean, obviously I value my own life, but when you have little ones, suddenly obviously their life becomes a lot more important and their safety. So I wanted to have the newest and most updated safety features. I wanted the car to be under warranty the whole time that I owned the car, so that I didn't have to worry about how to pay for car repairs if that needed to happen. Absolutely. And most importantly, I was at that time very much a stay-at-home mom that lived in my little bubble and had very low mileage, like 10,000 miles or less a year on my car. Yeah, far less.
the car lives in the garage when it's not, you know, in my little bubble.
True.
And I obviously found a car that was in a lease payment that was affordable to my personal budget, our personal budget. I mean, that goes without saying, no matter whether you buy, lease, whatever, you pick. You know, if a Lamborghini is in your budget, that's awesome.
Yeah.
If it's
all relative to,
you know, whatever it is. So that was, I feel like that was why a lease worked.
Absolutely.
And still actually works for me today. So now let's get into the bones of this.
Okay.
How do we get started with the car buying process?
Usually for me, I ask you, you know, what kind of car do you want? So, and I encourage you to kind of follow a couple of points. Obviously, you don't want to be too emotionally connected to a vehicle. That's just a bad behavioral kind of characteristic. So it's just a car at the end of the day. It's supposed to get you from A to B. So if you can try to be kind of dispassionate about it and not unemotional, that would be number one.
It's easier said than done.
The second thing I would say, and a lot of people may not realize this because it's a little bit counterintuitive, you think when you buy something that it should fit your expectations about what you want in terms of color and all the features, but that may not necessarily be the best thing in terms of the financial deal. So if you could be flexible and try to identify cars that are already existing on the lot and maybe ones that have been sitting on the lot for a long time, the dealers are going to be incentivized to get rid of those if they sit for a while in inventory, because they actually have to pay, they're paying back a loan to a bank for their entire inventory called dealer financing, and the longer it sits and the less they can, you know, liquidate it, the more they're just paying interest on that loan. So that's not a good thing from their perspective. So if you can be flexible, find a car that's been sitting around a while, like that hot pink car that, no, I'm just kidding.
I would actually do that.
Bottom line is, you might not, if you could find yourself not being too pigeonholed in terms of color, that would be key. I know that's a hard thing to do, but if you can be flexible on color and some other features, that would probably be beneficial, I would say.
Okay.
Just as a matter of course.
Okay, so we've picked out the general idea, like the SUV, sedan, what have you, and like maybe a few a few brands of car
that you might be interested.
So we're in the right frame of mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we got to figure out how much is this car really going to cost.
Yes.
So I thought for this video we would just like pick a real car model, and I was thinking a Toyota Camry because that's one of the most popular cars on the road.
Yeah, in America I think it's still one of the most popular.
So can you walk us through this process of like figuring out how much it really costs?
Yep.
Without actually going.
We'll use that as an example because I pulled it up on the computer. So it used to be a little harder to find out that price.
Right. So what do you need to start?
The first thing you need to understand is there is a manufactured suggested retail price on a car. Sometimes you'll see that on the sticker. Most of the times you'll see that on a sticker. So the manufactured suggested retail price, that's kind of the price that's advertised on the windows. That price is not a good price to focus on if you're a consumer at all. You want to be focusing on what the dealership actually pays for their vehicles. So that's called the factory pricing or the dealer pricing. So we want to search and look for not just that manufactured suggested price, the retail price, but the factory price. And so what we do is we can go online. There are various places you can go. I personally like to go on a website called nadaguides.com, N-A-D-A guides.com, and it's pretty well recognized in the industry as having the most accurate information regarding both retail pricing, but most importantly, it has all the factory invoicing for every type of car you could pretty much dream of, and all the options that are associated with those cars if you want to build some options into your vehicle.
Okay, so you go onto that website and like you pick, say, the Toyota Camry.
Right.
You could pick the model. You can even pick the different options and price all those individual things
Absolutely, which we've done in this particular instance. So for instance, with the Toyota Camry, we chose kind of a mid-level Camry. It's called the XLE Automatic. It's got leather interior. It's got a little bit of an upgraded trim. Looks a little nicer maybe on the inside. Subjectively, most people may agree with that, but you know, that's kind of I also added a couple of things onto our example Camry. Knowing Marnie, she likes to have kind of that radio that has a little bit more oomph to it, so I chose the audio package.
What I did to your car.
We also like the Four Seasons floor mats on our vehicles. Now you could buy those aftermarket, but sometimes you could just buy the
the manufactured one that they provide to you. And then I also added the rear spoiler just to make it a little bit more of a sport model.
Seriously? On a camera?
Maybe our kids will find that funny that mom's driving around a car that has a little spoiler on it.
I'm surprised you didn't add rims. Okay.
So, yeah, the rims we'd have to do aftermarket. I think Camry didn't offer rim options, wheel options. Anyway, so, and I did that really just to illustrate, like, if we were interested in buying this car or leasing this car, that we would go about getting that information well before running over to a dealership to talk to these folks about. I like to say we tender the offer to them. I don't accept offers from the dealer. I make the offer. That's just how I operate. I feel like I control the dialogue that way. So anyway, through NADA guides, you all can see that we've got the MSRP. That's going to be pretty standard. It shows the base price. It has what's called a destination fee, which is standard charged, and you're really not going to be able to wiggle out of that fee being a component of the price. But I take it out ultimately for purposes of determining what the purchase price is, and I pay that at the closing. I'll explain that later. But you have a total base price. You got the factory price that the dealer pays. You get the MSRP price. And then you've got the options, and which I think is really interesting about those options is you're going to see, even on the options, the dealer pays less, sometimes materially less than what they're charging it at retail. So remember that. MSRP under any scenario, whether it's base or options, is never a price that you want to be paying, not even close.
We have the MSRP price and we have the factory invoice, the real price, the wholesale basically price.
What the dealer pays.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I'm rephrasing.
Yes.
But there's more.
Mm-hmm. There is more, actually, believe it or not. Yeah, so you would think that the dealer just pays a price for a car. That's their wholesale price, like in most industries. And then, you're never really buying things wholesale, because the dealer operates their business and they got to make a little margin, a little margin on top.
Right.
But in the car buying business, there are all kinds of incentives that the manufacturer, like in this case Toyota Motors, will provide not only to the dealer but also to the customer to try to move property. Remember I said earlier that the dealer finances its inventory, and so they're paying back a loan to a bank, large banks. So they have an incentive to move this stuff. Even if it means paying something or charging something out to the customer a little bit less than what they actually paid for.
So what are you talking? Like, give me
an
example.
So I'm talking about cash. They actually give what's called like cash rebates, like if you're a college graduate, if you're in the military. Sometimes Lexus will give what's called like a golden opportunity event every year,
right. Yeah.
or some type of a December to remember. You hear about these things if you live in the States, and they try to just basically give people cash that can reduce the purchase price a little bit, just as an incentive to get the car moving. The other thing, and this is really important, is the manufacturer will give the dealership an incentive to move inventory. That's called a dealer holdback. And Toyota in particular, right now, they give 2% of the base price. So the base MSRP that you had showed earlier, if you calculate 2% of that, Toyota Motors gives that to the dealer every time they sell a particular car.
But how do you know this?
You got to learn about it. You got to study it online. And,
where do you find? Is there a website?
NADA Guides has a little bit of that. Edmunds.com. That's EDMUNDS.
I'll put it up there. Don't worry about it.
Okay, would be a place to find that. We bought Toyota type cars or Lexus cars in the past, so I just know that the manufacturer gives them a holdback.
So you can just search. There's all kinds of.
You can search. You can ask around. You can kind of play one dealership off the other to try to figure out where it all plays out. If you have a little bit of time, you can do that. But yeah, so just know that factory invoice, it gets reduced by those incentives.
So let me recap for those of us that are not numerically inclined.
Okay.
So we're taking the base price, the wholesale price.
Base plus options, yes.
Right. Okay. So
and
now we are subtracting from that.
Yep.
All those other numbers.
Little things. They're not a lot necessarily in terms of dollars. Like it may only be $500 or $1,000, but believe me, it gets down to what you're trying to get down to is the actual true dealer cost, the TDC, the true dealer cost.
What was the original MSRP without the destination fee?
Yeah, the original without was $30,972.
And then what was the factory base with options?
Okay, factory base with options was $27,991.
Okay, so that's a nice little drop. And then did you calculate with all the holdback and options?
Yeah.
And so what was that last
in
number?
August of 2018, when we were doing this, there's a $500 lease cash if you're going to lease it.
Well.
So the manufacturer gives you $500.
Okay, so that's if we're leasing. If we're buying, is there anything?
I didn't look at the buying. I was just looking at the lease option.
Okay.
Just because
so that's where we are.
Okay. There's also a dealer holdback, which is 2% of the base MSRP. That's $572. So right there, you've got $500 lease cash, and you've got $572, what's called a holdback. That money gets reduced off the factory invoice.
Okay,
Got it?
So we've taken another roughly $500-ish off the price.
So
Either option.
So the true dealer cost, the actual dealer cost in that car is $26,919. That's a lot lower than the corresponding MSRP cost.
But you can't offer them that because they still have to make money.
You know, you could offer it. It would
They're
be
never gonna,
unlikely.
That's ridiculous.
I know enough about the business, having been in banking, to know how it works. I would just say that. And I just say, look, most dealerships will take 3%. Some require 5% over true dealer cost. So in this case, $26,919, that's your true dealer cost.
Okay.
3% of that is $807.57. If you add that on to the true dealer cost, my offer to purchase it or capitalize it as a lease is $27,726.57. I know you're going to show those figures, but that to me is a very reasonable. You've built in a nice profit margin that would be acceptable to most American dealerships for that vehicle.
What if you want to lease the car?
A kind of a basic standard lease is 36 months and 10,000 miles a year. So you can put 10,000 miles a year over 3 years. That's basically 30,000 miles over a period of a 3-year lease.
And you're basically renting the car from the dealer. You're borrowing it.
That's right.
Okay.
And the reason, it's a good way. That's a really nice segue. You're basically renting it. And the way you figure out the rent is you start with that capitalized cost or the purchase price that I said, which is $27,726.57. But the car depreciates during that 3-year period. And you're basically renting the car during that period of depreciation, and you're going to pay essentially the depreciation during that 3-year period.
Yeah.
And so what you do is that depreciation is sometimes called a residual value. It has a value at the end of the lease term called a residual value. We've been going to this website called leasehacker.com. You need to look for the residual value first to figure out depreciation, and then Toyota is going to charge you a little bit of interest on your lease or a finance charge called a money factor. Set the money factor aside for a second. Let's just look at the residual value. I did my homework on this. It doesn't take long. In 10 minutes, you can figure it out. And in this particular case, the residual value for this Camry XLE, it's not awesome. It's 52%. And I guess that's not surprising.
Well, explain. I mean, that number means nothing to me. So explain what number you're looking to stay at or above.
If you can get a residual value on a vehicle that is north of 60%, that is a really good residual value. It means the car maintains a great value. Even after the end of the lease term, it still maintains a really nice value. So we know the residual value is 52% of the MSRP, the full total MSRP. So total MSRP in this case is $30,972. There's that number again. Times that by 52%, 0.52. And then you come up with a number. In this case, it's $16,105.54. That's how much the car depreciates over the life of the lease. Okay. So the residual value at the lease end is $16,105.44.
We stick that number to the side.
You calculate the depreciation relative to your term of lease. In this case, we're doing it over 36 months. So what you do then is you take your purchase price, which was $27,726.57, minus $16,105.44. That's the amount that it is worth at the end. And then it depreciates in the amount of $11,171.13. So the difference between the purchase price and the residual value at the end of the lease, that difference is how much it depreciates, $11,171.13. And that's your lease basically. You don't pay it all up front, although there is something called a one-time lease, but most people pay that over a term of, in this case, 36 months. So you divide $11,171.13 by 36, 3 years, and you come up with a number. And now you're coming up with a very comfortable sounding number. It's $310.30. That's the portion of the lease that pays for the depreciation over that 36 months. So you pay it monthly. That's right, because it would be a 0%.
Then there's an interest charge.
Finance charge, there's a finance charge. It's not like a typical interest rate. It's a lot lower than what you'd normally pay on an owner, not an owner,
like a finance,
but like a term of a loan. Basically, it's a lot lower than that. But it's in the leasing world, they call it a money factor. In this case, the money factor for somebody who's got good credit is is stated as a decimal. It's stated as 0.0005, so 0005. So you take the money factor, which is 0.0005. I know you're going to show this illustratively. And then you take your cap cost or your purchase cost, that's $27,726.57. You add to the cap cost your residual value, which is $16,105.44, and you come up with a sum, $27,726.57 plus $16,105.44. That total dollar amount, you multiply the money factor by that. So it's cap cost plus residual value is a number, and then you times it by the money factor, and you come up with a number. In this case, you come up with $21.91.
And that's your little, basically,
so you have to pay that every month. Yeah, you got to pay a little bit of interest every month.
And then you add that to
$21.91 added to $310.30, which is your original depreciation portion of the lease, and then your monthly payment that you pay each of the months for 36 months is $332.21. So if you were to lease a Camry in a way that I would believe would be commercially reasonable to me, I would not want to pay any more than $332.21. That's exclusive of taxes,
I was going to say,
and some fees, but I pay that at the closing personally. If they were asking me to pay more than that, I would say that it might not be commercially reasonable and I would look elsewhere. How's that sound?
So I know that was a lot of information, a lot of numbers that mostly Michael just threw at you, but it's important. The backbone, the foundation of this channel for me is, and for what I am, is always about education, whether it's learning more about makeup or clothing, or about how to be your best health advocate, or in this case, how to advocate for your best options when you go to buy a car, whether you're buying it, you're leasing it, or what have you. So, you know, hopefully, maybe you have to watch this a couple of times to really have it soak in. I've had to listen to this a few times and see it written out for me to really understand it. I'm not really a numbers person, but I get it now, and it makes perfect sense to me. And it's been really helpful to understand this whole process. And we are in the middle of figuring out what kind of car. I still haven't figured out what kind. I'm about to get a new car.
It gives you a population of cars by doing this kind of exercise. About
it helps you narrow down.
You know what you can afford. You're doing we do our particular budgeting methodology. So we know. And then if we're starting looking at a model or a trim package that is just not going to work out numbers-wise, we know it early on. So we disabuse ourselves of looking at anything that we really can't afford.
Yeah, that Lamborghini just isn't working out.
Although the residual values on Lambers are like 95%.
Oh my God.
They don't lose value.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, so
let's just snatch one up. Okay, but anyway, we are limited in the topics we can talk about because even though Michael is a licensed attorney, he cannot give specific legal advice through the internet. And he's not a licensed financial advisor, and even if he was, I don't think you're allowed to give financial advice through YouTube.
I probably doubt it. I'm just offering this as an example for how we operate.
So if you have any specific questions on, you know, like what he just talked about, he can probably answer them, but for your specific situation, not so much. And just remember, this comes from just our personal experience. We are not saying this is how you should do it.
Oh, gosh,
there's a million ways. There's so many, you know, whatever is right for you is what's right for you. And we appreciate that you've taken the time to listen to this very, very long video. So
I'm surprised anybody would find it interesting, but hey.
I like learning stuff. It doesn't matter what the topic is.
In the market.
So anyway, thank you for spending some time with us today. We hope to bring you more Marnie and Michael moments in the coming months. Comment below on some topics that you would like to hear more about. And if we can, we will make that happen. And as always, thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.
See you later.